Today we're with David Shapiro. David Shapiro is a criminal attorney in San Diego, California. He's agreed to answer some online questions. In addition to that, if you're looking at this video and you're in need of a criminal defense attorney, you can actually post some questions yourself in the comment section below in the video. He's agreed to get back to you within the next 24 or 48 hours with those answers. With that said, David, let's go ahead and go right into the first question. First question was, what should I consider when hiring a criminal defense attorney?
Well, there's a lot of things to consider. Generally speaking, you want someone who knows what they're doing. You want someone who handles, if not exclusively, at least a far majority of their practice, a large majority of their practice handles criminal defense cases. And you want someone who's experienced, preferably experienced within that courthouse and within the framework of the charges that you're facing. So, what is experience? Well, experience could be someone who's been practicing law for a number of years, or experience could be high volume experience in a short amount of time. So, you don't want to put too many eggs in one basket for the attorney who necessarily says, well, I've been practicing for 40 years. Well, what does that mean? How many trials have you done? How many criminal cases have you handled? You could be practicing 40 years and not do a whole lot. You could be practicing 7 or 8 years and have more experience than 95% of the people out there. So, that's important. You want to know first how many years they've been in practice, how many cases they've handled, and how that reconciles with their years of experience, how many cases they've had. You want someone who's handled your type of case or more serious types of cases in the past, particularly in that courthouse. So if your case is in San Diego, you want someone preferably to be a San Diego attorney. Now, if the case is going to trial, they could always affiliate with someone locally, or they could always affiliate with someone who at least has more experience in that county, in that courthouse. So it's not the end-all, be-all, but you obviously, in an ideal situation, you want someone who's in that courthouse on a weekly, if not a monthly, or at least a monthly basis, and who's familiar with the prosecutors, who's familiar with the judges. And most importantly, you want someone who is respected by the prosecutors, by the judges, and to a large degree by their fellow criminal defense attorneys. A lot of attorneys who may be doing very well for themselves financially, particularly in San Diego in the criminal defense market, do not have the respect of the judges, do not have the respect of prosecutors, and certainly do not have the respect of their fellow attorneys. And, as someone who's been doing this now for, 7, 8 years, in San Diego County, I look at some of these people and I feel bad, not necessarily for them, I feel bad for their clients, because it's the clients who are the ones who are suffering if you wind up hiring a clown as an attorney, someone who might be unprepared, someone who might not have the respect and might not have a positive reputation. So you want someone who's got a good reputation within the community as well.
Okay. All right. Next question we have is, and this was directly towards you. Do you offer payments over a period of time, or do you charge as far as a lump sum payment?
We do offer payment plans here. They need to be reasonable. It depends on the case. It depends how far along the case is. It depends where the case is. It depends the amount of money that's able to be put down. In an ideal world, the fee is X, the client pays X, and then we get to work. But we're also realistic that 9 out of 10 times when people get arrested for crimes, they're generally not planning on getting arrested, and the expenses that come with it, the expenses that come with having to bail out of custody if that's the situation, and the expenses that come come with hiring a quality criminal defense attorney. So we try and work with potential clients as much as possible, with our current clients as much as possible, but it needs to be reasonable, and the payment plan needs to be addressed and need to be dealt with in a reasonable and relatively quick amount of time, because I don't want to be in a position where my firm, my business turns into a debt collection agency where I'm chasing down money 4 or 5 months after the case is over. So generally speaking, I try and get paid in full, or we try and get paid in full. If it's a situation where payments, and we think it's reasonable, we have a trust to a certain degree with the potential client, I will work with you on that, but I generally try not to put out payments longer than I anticipate the case will be, because the last thing I want to do when the case is over with and everyone wants to move on is to be owed money. So it all depends on the case. I'm definitely open to that.
Okay. All right. Next question we have. This was very specific to an individual's position, I believe. I was just bailed out for a DUI. How long do I have before I need to hire an attorney?
That's a good question. Yeah. In an ideal world, you want to hire an attorney relatively quickly because as it relates to DUIs here in California, you have 10 calendar days from your arrest to set up your DMV administrative per se hearing. That doesn't mean the hearing itself will be within 10 calendar days, but you have 10 calendar days to set up that hearing. Otherwise, your license will be suspended automatically 31 days after your arrest. So, in an ideal situation, you get out of jail, you take a day to maybe compose yourself, get back to work, address the people you need to address about the situation, and then get to work researching attorneys, and, ideally within that 10-day window. And, in an ideal situation, you hire an attorney, around 4 or 5 days, no later, after your arrest, so that way that attorney can set up the DMV hearing and not have to, get that done on short notice. But, we're also realistic to the situation. Sometimes people let that deadline go. Sometimes people are smart and handle it themselves, at least setting up the hearing, and then hire an attorney, preferably before the first court date, your arraignment date. I've been hired on cases a week before trial and had to come in and get a continuance. It all depends. There's really no bad time, but obviously the further the case goes along, the more unenviable position it is for the client. And obviously, if you're the attorney coming in, I generally try not to undo people's work. I generally try not to, or do not like to undo other attorneys' works. If they screwed something up, it makes it more difficult to kind of undo certain things. So, in an ideal situation, you hire an attorney before the deadline passes to set up the DMV hearing, which is within 10 calendar days of your arrest, certainly before your first court appearance. But, don't be discouraged or deterred if you can't afford to do so by the first court appearance that it makes no sense to hire an attorney, because it does, especially if it's a good attorney. You might very well wind up with a good attorney with the public defender's office if you qualify for them, but that's a risk you might have to take, and it's a risk probably not worth taking, particularly if you have the ability to do so. Hire yourself a good attorney to defend against a DUI.
Okay, makes sense. And the final question we had was, I'm trying to understand how expungement works with an out-of-state felony charge. Can you please explain?
Well, if it's out-of-state, meaning out of California felony charge, when you figure it out, let me know, because I'm a California attorney, so I'm not sure, how other states work as far as their expungement statutes go. California itself is not necessarily a true expungement statute state. What I mean by that is under Penal Code Section 1203.4, at least in California, obviously each state has its own set of penal code sections. The conviction would be set aside. Basically, the guilty plea is withdrawn. Not guilty plea is entered, and the case is dismissed for many purposes, not all. Other states, the best thing to do would be to contact an attorney who's experienced in that state. The second best thing to do would be to contact an attorney that you trust or that has a good reputation where you're currently residing, and that attorney might be able to put you in contact with someone who they either know personally, can vouch for professionally, or basically could take a look at this person's website, this person's credentials, and say, hey, this is someone you might want to call in that state, and might be able to facilitate a meeting or a phone conference. So out-of-state stuff, each attorney's licensed within the state they practice, so I really can't speak on other states' practices, but contact an attorney in that state, or at the very least contact an attorney in your home state who might be able to facilitate that meeting.
Okay, all right. Well, that makes sense. Well, that was the last question. If you're watching the video, clearly you can reach out to David anytime. Also, feel free to post any questions in the comments below, and like I said, he's agreed to get back with you. With that said, David, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.